In the third loop, he actually does something different. And he tries to approach the girl to talk to her, and this is what happens.
Guys, she's back, all right? Out of respect for her, I'm not going to show her face, but I'm going to see if I can break the pattern. There she is. Hey, good morning. How you doing? Hey, I was just sitting here, and I saw you kind of doing the same thing over and over. And I was wondering if, like, stuff Oh, I didn't know. I thought they had OCD. Oh, okay.
A man was in a cemetery in Serbia when all of a sudden he started hearing strange sounds coming from inside a grave, and this is what he captured on camera. Check this out.
Gospode Bože, kakvi su ovo zvuci? Je li realno ovo? Kuku, gospode, ovo je horor. Horor, trauma, brate mili, trauma.
That same week, he went home, and while refurbishing his home, he found a very strange object. And this is what he found.
Nije slučajno. Koliko je rekao od vrata? 1,20 m ispred ulaznih vrata od kuće. Vidi da nije ništa slučajno. Što imamo tkanina crna. To su idioti stavili unutra. Neki papirić.
He found a piece of paper, some hair, and while doing all of this, he felt this was some sort of black magic or some sort of curse. This is what he found. Check this out. Really creepy. Now.
Malo mi je gadno što diram. Evo. I kako je moguće da čovjek potrefi? Evo.
Immediately no. I'm telling you right now, I seen what I needed.
This rock supposedly contains red mercury inside of it, and it was found in Egypt, and it can do strange things. This, for example, is what the man is going to experiment right now with a water bottle. He approaches the rock, see what happens. Now he's going to experiment with the bottle of Coca-Cola, and this is what happens. Check this out. Now, red mercury is supposedly a substance that does not exist. It was technically used in the 40s to produce atomic bombs or something like that. Check this out. However, it was never proved that it existed. There's a lot to know about red mercury, and there's a lot of videos going on, and if you'd like to know more, leave a like for part 2 and I'll explain everything. Some people believe that these videos are just a hoax to sell these rocks online, these special artifacts. However, how do you explain these videos? There are tons of these videos and different types of rocks. I'll show you guys in a part 2.
NASA just reported that there are 5 asteroids heading towards Earth just this week alone. And these asteroids are all over 200 feet in diameter and are all traveling at over 30,000 miles per hour. You heard me right, there is going to be 5 asteroids buzz right by Earth this week. And all these asteroids are ranging from 200 feet in diameter to 400 feet. One passed right by us on the 21st, another one is going to pass us on the 22nd, another one on the 24th, and 2 more on the 26th. Thankfully, all but one of these asteroids is going to pass us at a safe distance. But one of the asteroids is going to pass us on the 24th of this month, NASA says is potentially dangerous. NASA says not to panic, but knowing 2020, who knows what's going to happen. This couple has taken social distancing because of the coronavirus extremely serious. So serious, in fact, that they have lived for 29 years on an island they hand-built themselves. And they are over 10 miles away from anyone else. This awesome island is located in Canada off the west coast of Vancouver Island. And this compound has everything you could ever possibly ask for and more. It has an art gallery, a candle factory, 6 solar panels, and even a working waste management system, 4 greenhouses, a dance floor, and a freaking lighthouse, and access to a small waterfall that provides constant running water. The whole structure is the size of 2 city lots, and it weighs over 1 million pounds, and it floats freely on the ocean. And when the weather is really bad and they can't manage to go fishing outside, thanks to a piece of plexiglass in their living room, they are able to fish from the comfort of their own couch. I'm about to tell you what your eye color says about yourself. First up, remember the number that goes with your eye color. That's the order we're gonna go in. Here we go. Number 1, blue eyes. You possess great inner strength and physical strength. You are strong of mind and body, and you know exactly what you want out of life. Number 2, green eyes. You tend to be unpredictable, slow to anger, original, creative, and able to keep cool under stress. You are agreeable, dominant, strong, and cautious. And you are seen as sexy, alluring, and mysterious by others. Number 3, hazel eyes. You are independent, confident, and spontaneous. You have a very balanced mind that can sometimes be mysterious to read. You are also an energetic person that people love to be around. Number 4, brown eyes. You are viewed as natural-born leaders. You are very loyal, respectful, and gentle people. You are also strong-willed, kind, and all-around good friends to others. Here is a movie secret that you didn't know. In the movie Now You See Me, Isla Fisher had a near-death experience while performing a stunt. Her character is supposed to be submerged into a tank full of water while chained. But things took a turn for the worst when the chains actually became stuck and the actress couldn't set herself free. She was underwater for nearly 2.5 minutes before she actually got out. When she was banging on the glass screaming to be set free, everyone just thought that she was doing fabulous acting. But she was actually stuck and she was drowning. Believe it or not, these 3 animals can live forever. Number 1, we have tardigrades, or better known as water bears. These microscopic animals are the most indestructible species of animals on Earth. They can survive radiation, boiling liquids, and even outer space without any protection. They survive by going into an almost death-like state called cryptobiosis, and they can stay in that state forever. Number 2, alligators and crocodiles. Aging has absolutely no effect on them. Although they can't die of natural aging, nature always has a way to kill them. The way they die is out of starvation or if they contract the disease. Number 3, regenerating flatworms. These creepy crawlers are famous for their regeneration abilities. When a worm is cut, it can form into 2 separate worms. This apparently limitless regeneration also applies to aging and damaged tissue. This allows the worms to cheat death forever. In August of this year, ABC News actually aired a satanic ritual on television. It is seriously going to blow your mind that this really happened. Obviously, tons of viewers were upset by this, and many people think that this was done on purpose. Here's the clip.
An arrest in Brisbane last year.
Wait for it.
Yup, they literally aired a Satanist group during a ritual. But what's also super weird is how they just go back to normal afterwards. Take a look.
Recent outages.
Now the worst part about all of this is that this was not a live broadcast, it was pre-filmed, which means that someone edited this short segment into it purposefully. In 2018, a meteor impacted Earth, and what scientists just found on it is shocking them. On January 16, 2018, a fireball meteor was seen streaking across the sky over the Midwest of the United States. It was immediately recovered and the analysis of it was just published, showing that the meteorite contained over 2,600 organic compounds, which are the building blocks for life. Scientists believe the meteorite was ejected from its parent asteroid and traveled through space for over 12 million years, until it landed on Earth just 2 years ago. The meteorite came from an asteroid that formed over 4.5 billion years ago. So this means that the building blocks of life are on some asteroid that has just been floating through space for over 4.5 billion years. If you want longer videos, go check out my YouTube, link in my bio. An elderly couple were trapped in their home during a hurricane, and Chick-fil-A ended up saving their lives. JC and Karen Spencer were an elderly married couple that lived in Houston, Texas. And in 2017, they were going to try to ride out Hurricane Harvey in their house, which ended up being a huge mistake. The storm began to fill their house with water very quickly, and that's when they tried to call 911, but they didn't get a response. That's when they decided to call their local Chick-fil-A restaurant since they were regular customers. JC placed an order for 2 grilled chicken burritos with extra egg and a rescue boat. The manager of the Chick-fil-A then got on her boat and got 2 other employees on jet skis and headed to rescue their loyal customers. But before I continue, there's a brand new workout app I've been using that has tailored workout plans to help you achieve your desired body. Click the link in my bio to try it out. When the Chick-fil-A manager and employees reached the elderly couple's house, they were able to rescue them and bring them to safety before it was too late. Here's what would happen if we detonated the world's strongest nuke at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Currently, Earth's deepest known point is the Marianas Trench, that is a deep valley at the edge of 2 tectonic plates. It reaches a depth of over 11,000 meters and is relatively untouched by humans until now. For this test, let's use the strongest nuclear bomb humans have ever exploded, the Tsar Bomba. Its explosion was so powerful, its shockwave traveled around the Earth 3 times. Let's say we have the bomb at the bottom of the trench and we blow it up. What would happen? First off, the heat of the explosion produces a flaming bubble of water vapor and radioactive nuclei. And the bubble grows very quickly as it vaporizes everything around it. Since the pressure that deep in the ocean is so high, 1 second after detonation, the bubble would begin to shrink. The pressure causes the bomb to disintegrate into many hot and radioactive bubbles that float to the surface. And when they get to the surface, nothing would happen. You can theoretically time travel to the future, and here's exactly how it would work. Thanks to Einstein, we know that the faster you go, the slower time passes. So basically, a very fast spaceship is a time machine to the future, and here's an example of how this would work. If you were on a ship traveling at 99% the speed of light for 5 years, that would correspond to roughly 36 years on Earth. When the spaceship returned to Earth, 36 Earth years would have passed, but the passengers on the spaceship would only be 5 years older than when they left. This is obviously all hypothetical since we can't travel at 99% the speed of light. But here's an example of time dilation that is going on right now. Einstein's theory also says that gravity curves space and time, causing the passage of time to slow down. And the satellites that orbit Earth are over 12,000 miles above Earth, so the gravity is much weaker. This causes the clocks on the satellites to run 1 second faster than the clocks on Earth. Let's talk about light years because this shit blows my mind. In simple terms, a light year is the distance light travels in 1 year. But let me show you some examples of why I think the whole concept of light years is insane. Recently, the Hubble telescope captured a supernova exploding in a distant galaxy that's 70 million light years away. So this means that this explosion happened 70 million years ago and we are just now seeing it. Let me give you another example. If you were on a planet that was 65 million light years away from Earth and somehow had a big enough telescope pointed directly at Earth, through that telescope you would theoretically see dinosaurs roaming the Earth because dinosaurs were around 65 million years ago. If your mind isn't blown enough already, listen to this. Light takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds to travel from the sun to the Earth. That means that if for some reason the sun just disappeared, we wouldn't even know until 8 minutes and 20 seconds later. This man lost over 100 pounds in order to save his wife's life, and their story will make you smile. His name is PJ, and his wife Tracy suffered from lupus in her kidneys. She was in dire need of a kidney transplant, but the waiting list for a kidney was 7 years. And if she didn't get one in a year, she was gonna die. It turned out that PJ was a perfect match and was able to donate his kidney to save her life. But sadly, his blood pressure was way too high for him to go through the grueling surgery and recovery because of his weight. But instead of giving up, PJ worked out every day for a whole year and lost over 100 pounds. And what happened next will make you smile. But wait, before I continue, if you want to lose weight really fast like PJ, then you need this fitness app that creates customized workouts for you. Link is in my bio if you want to get in shape too. PJ and his wife then underwent the surgery where everything went smoothly and they both made a full recovery. And they are now healthier and happier than ever. Here are some cities that you won't believe actually exist. Number 1 is Whittier, Alaska, where all residents live in the same building. All the residents of the city live in this 14-level building that used to be a former military facility. Inside it has a school, a police station, a hospital, stores, a church, and more. Number 2 is Miracle Village in Florida, that is a city where only sex offenders live. The sex offenders decided to create their own city out in the middle of nowhere since it's hard for them to find places to live due to their criminal records. And Miracle Village is the largest community of registered sex offenders in the United States with over 300 residents. Number 3 is the sleeping city of Kalachi, where the residents just randomly fall asleep for no reason. The residents randomly start to slur their words and then fall into a deep sleep that can last days. This has been going on for many years now, and scientists don't really know what causes it. Here are some places that you cannot visit even if you wanted to. Number 1, the Bohemian Grove in San Francisco, which is a restricted campground where the richest and most powerful men in the world meet. Members include prominent business leaders, government officials, and former US presidents, and no one knows exactly what goes on in these meetings. This is one of the only photos ever captured of the meetings, which shows the members doing some sort of ritual. Number 2, the Chapel of the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia, which contains the 2 stone tablets that God gave Moses containing the 10 Commandments. Only one priest is allowed to view the Ark, and if anyone else sees it, it is claimed that they will implode. Number 3, Snake Island, located off the coast of Brazil. This island contains the golden lancehead vipers that's venom will kill you in just a couple hours. There is over 4,000 snakes on this island, which equates to about 1 snake per square meter. So you know how whenever Batman is talking to somebody, he'll just randomly disappear? Well, here are the Batman movies, but you actually see Batman running away.
When the new DA hears about this, he'll want in.
Do you trust him?
It'll be hard to keep him out, and here he's as stubborn as you are. He thinks you're dangerous.
What do you think?
I think you're trying to help.
The Daggett seemed pretty interested in that mess at the stock market.
Miss Kyle. So that's what that feels like.
How astronauts on the International Space Station actually use the bathroom will definitely shock you and probably make you laugh too. So for astronauts on the International Space Station, this is what their toilet looks like. The toilet only has a 4-inch wide hole, which is a lot smaller than the toilets on Earth. But the worst part is that the trash on the International Space Station isn't taken out all the time. So when that silver can gets full, they have to put on some rubber gloves and shove everything back down into the toilet. But sometimes when they're doing that, things can escape from the toilet and they have to go around the space station and catch floating shit. And when the trash is taken out, they launch it towards the atmosphere to burn up. So some shooting stars are actually just astronaut shit. NASA might have detected life on Venus in 1978, but they didn't notice, until now. If life does exist on Venus, NASA may have first detected it back in 1978, but the finding went unnoticed for 42 years. On September 14th of this year, a team of scientists were using telescopes and observing Venus when they discovered something insane. They detected phosphine in the upper part of the planet's thick atmosphere. Phosphine is a toxic gas that for a long time has been known to be a possible sign of alien microbial life. But after this discovery, scientists looked through old NASA archived data and realized something. They found that a hint of phosphine was actually picked up by the Pioneer 13 probe that reached Venus in December of 1978. So that means for the past 42 years we could have been looking for alien life on Venus. But because of this mistake made by NASA, we didn't even know what to look for. This pizza delivery man's quick thinking saved a kidnapped woman's life, and he got a really awesome reward for his heroics. Back in 2019, Joey Grundle was sent to a woman's house to deliver a pizza when her ex-boyfriend Dean Hoffman opened the door. Grundle looked over Hoffman's shoulder and saw a middle-aged woman with a black eye standing behind him. She pointed right at her black eye and mouthed, "Call the police." When Grundle got back to his delivery car, he called the police. And when they arrived, they saw a gruesome sight. Hoffman's ex-girlfriend was bruised all over and was hogtied with a vacuum power cord. And Hoffman was planning on shooting her and then shooting himself with a gun he had. But thankfully Hoffman was arrested and his ex-girlfriend was taken to the hospital for her wounds. But this is when the story gets even crazier. A day later, Grundle was on the news talking about the incident. And he was wearing a hoodie from Taylor Swift's Reputation tour. Taylor Swift is actually Grundle's favorite artist, and she actually learned of his story. And she invited him backstage for her next concert. These two girls went missing for 40 years until someone spotted a suspicious car. On May 29, 1971, high school students Cheryl Miller and Pamela Jackson were on their way to a party when the friends they were following made a wrong turn. They doubled back, but when the driver of the other car checked the rearview mirror, the headlights from Cheryl and Pamela's car were gone. Local authorities immediately took up the case, but at the start of the investigation, things didn't add up. There was no sign of a crash in the area where they disappeared, and there was no tracks indicating they'd gone off-road. According to reports, the site of the party was right next to a farm. The farm belonged to David Lycan, who was a serial rapist that was serving 225 years in prison. This led authorities to search Lycan's farm, where they found dozens of bones buried beneath the property. But all of the bones turned out to be just butchered animals, so Lycan walked free. 42 years later, a fisherman found a rusted car sticking out of some mud. When authorities pulled the car out of the mud, they found it was the same car the girls were in, and inside was the girls' bodies. These two little girls were caught using Taco Bell's Wi-Fi to do their homework, and what happened after will make you smile. In the beginning of September, two young girls were sitting outside of a Taco Bell using the restaurant's free Wi-Fi to do their homework, when one of the workers captured this photo of them and posted it onto Twitter, where it went viral. The story attracted the attention of a woman named Jackie Lopez, who also learned that the girl's family was going to be evicted from the apartment which they rented. So Jackie then started a GoFundMe campaign for the family, and to this day it has raised over $130,000. And in addition to the funds raised on GoFundMe, the girls have also received their own personal wireless hotspots so they can do homework from their home. Here are some photos taken right before disaster. Here is the infamous photo that this unsuspecting family captured. The photo shows the last moments of Ayanu's life. In the background of this photo, you can see Ayanu in the red sweater at the top of the safety ledge. But just moments after this photo was captured, Ayanu got up to climb back over the railing when she lost her balance and slipped into the rushing waters. She was then thrown over the edge of the falls to her death. Amateur photographer John Gilpin was taking photos of airplanes taking off and landing at the airport when he accidentally captured the precise moment Keith fell over 200 feet from the plane as it took off. Keith died from falling when the door of the plane's wheel compartment opened, and this is the last photo ever taken of Geraldine. It was taken by her husband the day she left to go on her hike. And 2 years later, in October 2015, Geraldine's body was eventually found near Reddington Township. This 7-year-old boy crawled on his hands and knees through 1 mile of Australian bushland to get help for his dying father. Tyler Moon and his father were riding quad bikes on the far edge of the family property when it suddenly flipped and crushed them underneath. Tyler's father was unconscious, but he knew he had to get help or his father would die. Since the 7-year-old had 9 broken ribs and a collapsed lung, he had to crawl on his hands and knees over 1 mile through the Australian bushland to his home where his mother was. When he reached home, he said, "Daddy needs an ambulance," and then he fell to the floor unconscious. But thanks to the sheer determination of 7-year-old Tyler Moon, both him and his father were able to make a miraculous recovery. This is the most terrifying bathroom you'll ever see. The bathroom is located in a secret underground bar in Tokyo, and this horrifying face watches you on the toilet. Now, the inside of the toilet has special pressure sensors, so the more you doo-doo, the closer it gets to you. It will sing to you as it slowly moves closer until eventually it violates you. Watch this. China did something really messed up at the Olympics involving this little girl that most people don't know about. During the 2008 Beijing Olympics, a 9-year-old sang the national anthem. But what could be wrong with that, you may ask? Well, it turns out this 9-year-old was lip-syncing. And who was the real singer? It was this 7-year-old girl who was kept backstage because she was considered to be not good looking enough. And the government thought she would ruin China's image. Here is a movie secret that you didn't know. In the movie Now You See Me, Isla Fisher almost died while performing a stunt. In this scene, her character is supposed to be submerged in a tank full of water while chained. But things took a turn for the worst when the chains actually became stuck and the actress couldn't set herself free. She was underwater for nearly 2.5 minutes before she actually got out. When she was banging on the glass yelling to be set free, everyone thought she was just doing fabulous acting. But she was actually stuck and was drowning. This pizza delivery man saved a kidnapped woman's life, and you won't believe what Taylor Swift did when she heard his story. Back in 2019, Joey Grundle was sent to a woman's house to deliver a pizza, when this man named Dean Hoffman opened the door. But standing right behind Hoffman was a middle-aged woman with a black eye. She looked right at Grundle, pointed at her black eye, and mouthed, "Call the police." When Grundle got back to his delivery car, he did just that, and when the police arrived, they saw a gruesome sight. Police arrived and found the woman bruised all over and hogtied with a vacuum power cord. And Hoffman was planning on shooting her and then shooting himself with a gun he had. But thankfully Hoffman was arrested and the woman was taken to the hospital for her wounds. But this is when the story gets even crazier. A day later, Hoffman was on the news talking about the incident and he was wearing a Taylor Swift hoodie. Taylor Swift is Grundle's favorite artist and she invited him backstage to one of her concerts. Disturbing facts you didn't want to hear. Chainsaws were invented to help birth babies. A prisoner who survived the electric chair said that death tasted like peanut butter. In the 1800s, it was not uncommon for families to take photos with recently deceased relatives for one last thing to remember them by. There's an estimated 50 to 100 serial killers at large right now. You might think that the chemical chlorine is what makes your eyes red when you're in the pool, but it's actually chloramine, which is what happens when chlorine mixes with urine. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 25. First, back in 2018, scientists used radar signals on the surface of Mars and found shiny patches underground, which ended up being a network of underground lakes. But just a couple days ago, scientists found dozens more of these shiny patches, but in regions that are way too cold for liquid water. So if it can't be more underground lakes, what could it be? Actually, scientists say they have no idea what these new shiny patches under Mars' surface are. Next, scientists might have just found a new human species. A skull preserved almost perfectly from more than 140,000 years was just found in China, and it represents a new species of ancient people. Scientists say this is huge news as this could fundamentally alter our understanding of human evolution. I just found out that invisibility cloaks are actually real, and the way they work will blow your mind. So apparently invisibility cloaks are no longer just science fiction. A Canadian company developed a light-bending quantum stealth material. The material can bend light around an object or a person behind it, leaving only the background visible, just like a real-life invisibility cloak. For now, the technology will most likely only be available to the military, but maybe one day we can have access to it too. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 24. First, scientists recently identified 29 habitable planets where aliens could be observing Earth from. These habitable planets are close enough for them to intercept a clear signal of human existence. Signals like radio and TV broadcasts, which started about 100 years ago. I'm not saying that aliens are observing us, but scientists say it could be possible. Next, microscopic freshwater-dwelling organisms just came back to life after being frozen for 24,000 years. A recent study unearthed 24,000-year-old permafrost and found living organisms in it. Next, the last supermoon of 2021 is happening soon, so listen up if you want to see it. This specific supermoon is called the Strawberry Moon. The full moon will reach peak illumination on Thursday, June 24th, and will appear full for 3 days. This man spent 7 days underwater, and you won't believe what happened to him. The professional daredevil and magician David Blaine spent 1 year vigorously training for this stunt. He then spent 7 days straight in a water-filled sphere in New York City. Everything was going good until the second day when he started suffering from minor organ failure. But he still rejected multiple attempts from his medical team to end the stunt. On the 7th day, he attempted a world record breath hold while being handcuffed, but 7 minutes in, he started to black out and drown. His medical team jumped in just in the nick of time and saved his life. But David didn't give up. He trained relentlessly for 2 years, and he actually broke the world record for holding his breath underwater for 17 minutes live on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Unbelievable stories that sound fake but are 100% real. This is Henry Tandy, and he was the most decorated British soldier during World War I, meaning he had the most medals and honors, but that's not why he's remembered today. On a fall day in 1918, Henry was propped up on a war trench just like this when scanning the battlefield before the day came to an end. When he suddenly noticed a shadowy figure walking towards him through the mist, he immediately grabbed his rifle because he wasn't sure if this guy was on his side or the enemy's. But as the figure got closer, Henry realized that this guy was severely wounded and he had a German uniform on, meaning he was indeed the enemy. The wounded soldier had no weapon and just kept slowly walking towards Henry, not realizing the danger he had just gotten himself into. But as the German realized what was about to happen, he didn't try to run away, he just stood there and accepted his fate. Henry couldn't find the strength to shoot this guy, so he let him go. That soldier was Adolf Hitler. Here's the dark truth behind The Wizard of Oz. The actress that played Dorothy, Judy Garland, was actually drugged and molested during filming. She was also given adrenaline shots so that she could stay up to sometimes more than 48 hours in a row. And there was also reports that she was molested and sexually harassed by both the Munchkin actors and studio executives. The actress that plays the Wicked Witch also got horrifically burned on set. In this scene where the Wicked Witch escapes Munchkin Land in a plume of smoke, the pyrotechnics team accidentally set off the explosion a little too early, which caused the actress's broom, hat, and makeup to catch on fire. Medics had to use alcohol to remove her toxic makeup, which was extremely painful due to her burns. And the fake snow in this scene was made using asbestos, which causes cancer. Here are some things that are way bigger than they seem. Number 1, this is the Titanic in front of a modern cruise ship. Look how tiny it looks compared to the modern cruise ship. Number 2, we have saltwater crocodiles that are way bigger than I would ever expect. Number 3, this one shocked me, but look how massive mooses are. Just look at this one next to these trees, they're absolutely huge. Here we have fully inflated horse lungs. Just look how big the lungs look next to these two women. And number 5, we have polar bear claws. Look at these humongous claws compared to these human hands. That is scary. This actor went way too far, part 3. Let's talk about Adrian Brody. Brody lost 30 pounds in just a 6-week period. At his lightest, he weighed only 130 pounds. But that is just the beginning. Since the person he was portraying in the movie lost everything due to the Holocaust, he thought he would do the same. Brody gave up his apartment, sold his car, and moved to Europe with only 2 bags so he could get familiar with his character's discomfort. He also cut ties with all his friends and family and didn't communicate with anyone during the shooting of the movie. He even learned to play the piano just for this role, and he was practicing for as much as 10 hours a day. But as you can guess, all this overworking definitely took a toll on him. He ended up getting very sick, as you can see here. And Brody himself has said that after this movie, his life never went back to normal. This actor went way too far, part 2. Let's talk about Leonardo DiCaprio. For the filming of the movie The Revenant, he actually lived in the frozen outdoors for the whole filming of the movie. He would actually sleep in animal carcasses to try to stay warm. And Leonardo DiCaprio, who is a diehard vegetarian, actually ate raw bison liver and raw fish during the filming of this movie. And for filming, he would have to go for regular swims in frozen rivers. And during filming, he was enduring freezing cold and possible hypothermia consistently, which actually led him to getting the flu many times during filming. This actor went way too far. Let's talk about Shia LaBeouf. Just a day after being casted in the movie Fury, he literally joined the United States National Guard, and he spent a whole month on a real military base. He then cut his own face, creating a real scar, and then the man pulled out his own tooth. Oh, and he did all this without showering for 4 whole months. But hold up, Shia LaBeouf's craziness doesn't stop there. For his upcoming movie Tax Collector, instead of just getting makeup, he actually tattooed his entire chest. This might look like a normal photo, but this photo was taken right before disaster. This is the last photo ever taken of Paul Walker. The photo shows Paul Walker climbing into the car that would eventually crash, taking him and the driver's lives back in 2013. And the craziest part is, Paul Walker wasn't even the one driving. The guy that was driving was a professional race car driver. And the saddest part is, all this happened at a charity event that Paul Walker was hosting. Today we're going to talk about some of the most surprising movie mistakes that you have most likely never noticed before. In the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, there's one humongous mistake I'm surprised most people have never noticed. In this scene, if you pay close attention to this little blonde girl right here, the Candyman actually hits this little girl right in the face when he lifts the counter. In the movie American Sniper, there is one obvious mistake I guarantee will make you laugh. In this scene, they substituted a real baby for a literal doll. You can clearly see Bradley Cooper moving the doll's hand with his thumb to make it look more realistic. But in all honesty, they are not tricking anyone. This looks completely fake. Next up, we have the movie Soul Surfer. In the movie Soul Surfer, they wrapped green tape around Anna Sophia Robb's arm to digitally remove it from the movie since her arm got bit off by a shark. But in this scene in the trailer, you can see where they completely forgot to edit her arm out. So that video got 18 million views, and a lot of people are saying they feel bad for him. But I did some research, and you definitely won't feel bad for him when you learn what he did. This is 17-year-old Jacob Matthew Morgan, and he lived in this mobile home with his parents and his 14-month-old little brother Joshua. One day Jacob's parents weren't home and had him watching over his little brother Joshua. As Joshua was sleeping, Jacob started a fire at both ends of the mobile home, which quickly engulfed the entire home. Jacob then stood outside the home and just watched the house burn. Jacob did not try to save his little brother and didn't even call 911 even though he had his phone in his pocket. A neighbor called 911, and when firefighters arrived, they tried to save Joshua, but sadly they couldn't, and he died the worst death imaginable. You should never trust a photographer, and this is why. Zoe Fit was a model on Instagram who was doing a photo shoot with a photographer she thought she trusted. But when Zoe went to the bathroom to change, she noticed a small light on one of the charging bricks. So she unplugged it from the wall, and when she turned it around, she noticed a memory chip inside. And when she got home, she plugged it into her computer and was horrified with what she saw. Zoe found hundreds of videos of her and other models that fell victim to the hidden camera. Zoe was devastated and weirded out by the whole situation. But I'm just glad she was brave enough to come out and tell her story so that this doesn't happen to other people. These videos may seem innocent, but actually have a disturbing backstory. This video shows a man playing Dance Dance Revelation while some teens unknowingly record him and make fun of him. 6 months after this video was taken, the man Adam Lanzo would shoot his own mother 4 times in the head while sleeping. He then drove to Sandy Hook Elementary School where he murdered 23 people. This video shows magician Tommy Cooper having a heart attack on live TV. The audience, as well as his assistant, thought it was part of the show, so they all laughed along as he died on stage. This video shows a popular CSGO streamer showing off his new McLaren. However, he was banned from streaming a week later for hacking, and this caused him to have a mental breakdown. So he purposely crashed the car into another van, killing himself, a mother, and her child. This man was arrested and nicknamed the Pee Poo Poo Man, and when you hear what he did, you'll understand why. Back on November 22nd, 2019, 23-year-old Samuel Opoku walked into the University of Toronto's library. He then poured a bucket of liquid human feces and urine onto an unsuspecting student, and this is the actual photo of the scene. You can see liquid feces spread over a student's laptop, headphones, and coffee cup. Then 2 days later, Samuel would go into York University's library and do the same thing on a few more unsuspecting students. And a day after that, Samuel dumped another bucket of liquid fecal matter on someone who was leaving the library. Samuel was caught on many security cameras and was arrested for 5 charges of assault with a weapon, the weapon being human excrement. This little boy got in trouble at school because his teachers thought he was lying when he said his uncle was Superman, but the thing is, he wasn't lying. Little Thomas is 7 years old and he went to school dressed like Superman, and his teacher asked him why he was dressed like that. And the little boy said, because Superman is my uncle. The boy's teacher tried to explain that Superman wasn't real, but he was having none of it. He insisted and said many times that not only was Superman real, but he was his uncle. And apparently it got so bad that the teacher ended up sending him to the principal's office. Thomas's mom was then called to the office and the teachers were instructing Thomas to not lie. But when Thomas's mom realized the reason he got in trouble, she just laughed and told him that he was telling the truth. Thomas's mother called her brother-in-law and told him to come to school with Thomas to prove he wasn't a liar. And Thomas was very happy when Henry Cavill, who is actually Superman, went to school with him to show all of his friends and teachers. 3 days ago, this man made headlines when he claimed he was swallowed by a whale, but is he telling the truth? On June 12, 2021, Richard Packard was lobster diving off the coast of Cape Cod. He was about 45 feet deep when he said it felt like a truck hit him and everything went dark. At first, he thought he had been eaten by a great white shark. That's when he said he realized he was in the mouth of a humpback whale. But here's the thing, it is literally impossible to be swallowed by a humpback whale. Not only do they have no interest in eating humans, but their throats are about the size of a human fist. Now it is possible that Richard was engulfed by a whale before it realized its mistake and spit him out within 30 seconds. But it did not swallow him. Also, the chances of everything in his story actually happening are about 1 in a billion. And he only suffered a dislocated knee and some soft tissue damage, which is also very suspicious. Here are some photos taken right before disaster, part 27. This photo was taken at the Burning Man festival. Aaron Mitchell thought it would be a good idea to run straight into the burning effigy. And just as you would think, he burned to death. And this is the last photo ever taken of him. This photo shows 14-year-old Keith Sapsford. He hid in the wheel compartment of a flight heading from Sydney to Japan. The photo was captured by John Gilspin, who was testing out his new camera lens, when he accidentally captured the last moments of Keith's life. Geraldine thought it would be a good idea to go on a hiking expedition all by herself, but she ended up going missing, and it wasn't until 2 years later when her body was finally found. She had likely died from starvation and exposure to the elements. She tried to text her husband to contact authorities, but none of them went through. And this was the last photo of her taken before her hike. This guy bit himself with a snake every day until something horrific happened. His name is Steve Ludman, and he's turned himself into a real-life science experiment. When he was 17, he made it his mission to mutate his cells through snake venom. One day he bought a bunch of venomous snakes and started experimenting on himself by injecting the venom into his skin. At first, everything was great, and Steve began feeling almost superhuman. He did this for 4 years until one day he got extremely sick. Steve was rushed to the hospital with a strange illness and was not expected to live. Doctors gave him a 1% chance of survival, and after 3 weeks of no improvement, his girlfriend did something drastic. She snuck into his hospital room and administered him cobra snake venom. But little did she know that would change his life forever. Steve woke up and made a full recovery just hours later. And to this day he's immune to snake venom and cannot feel pain. This man cheated death 7 times, but what happened to him after will shock you. His name is Fran Selleck. When he was 33 years old, his train crashed into a river, killing 17 people, but he managed to survive. 1 year later, he was flying on an airplane when the plane doors blew open and he blew out with it. And believe it or not, he survived by landing on a haystack. 3 years later, he was on a bus that plunged into a river, killing 4 people, but not him. When he was 41, his gas tank exploded, but he managed to react in time and escape. Just 1 year later, he was in another bus accident that killed 2 people, but of course, he somehow managed to survive. But in 2003, his life changed forever. In 2003, he went on to win the lottery and become a millionaire. He truly is the most unlucky, lucky person ever. Doctors thought this 5-year-old girl had a tumor, but when they took one look at her x-ray, they found out the horrifying truth. Back in 1933, in a small town located in Peru, a baby mysteriously showed up at the front door of the local orphanage. Nobody had the slightest idea of where the baby came from. But later that week, a young couple adopted her and named her Lina. But as Lina grew older, the townspeople feared her, claiming she was possessed. Years went by of this, but on Lina's 5th birthday, she noticed a strange bump at the bottom of her stomach. She told her parents, but they just laughed it off, assuming she was imagining things. Months and months passed, and her stomach grew bigger every day. Finally, her parents took her to the doctors, where they decided to run some tests. But when they took one look at her x-rays, they could not believe their eyes. Doctors found out she was 9 months pregnant and removed the baby immediately, making her the youngest confirmed mother in the world. These conjoined brothers who are attached at the hip do not want to be separated. Shivanath and Shivram Sahu are conjoined twins from India who are attached at the waist. The twins share 2 legs and 4 arms, but have separate hearts and brains, and despite sharing a body, they actually live a pretty normal life. They're able to shower, eat, and dress themselves, and they even found out a way to ride their bike to school together. However, life is about to get a lot more complicated for the twins, as doctors say they can't actually be separated. If they tried to, the weaker one, Shivanath, would most likely die. Shivram, the stronger one, would most likely retain both legs and live a normal life. But the twins say even if they could afford the surgery, they wouldn't do it. Because any challenge they face in life, they want to face together. What Pablo Escobar did when his daughter asked him for a unicorn was crazy and will shock you. Just in case you don't already know, Pablo Escobar was rich. In fact, one time his daughter was cold, so he grabbed all the paper that was around him and burned it to keep her warm. That paper was $2 million worth of cash. But when his daughter asked him for a unicorn, he couldn't exactly get one because they're not real. But this man is not gonna let reality get in his way. So one day he got his men to bring him a white horse. But a unicorn has a horn and wings. So Pablo Escobar had his men staple a horn and colorful wings onto that horse. Literally stapled it. But unfortunately, the horse died from infection. This man was attacked by a shark, but instead of killing him, it actually ended up saving his life, and you won't believe how. In 2015, Eugene took his girlfriend and his 2 kids to California for a family vacation. As him and his daughter swam off the shores of Huntington Beach, he could sense something was wrong. Instantly, he felt a sharp pain in his back and he was pulled down to the bottom of the ocean. A great white shark had attacked him and wasn't letting him go. But somehow Eugene managed to escape to the surface. He barely made it to shore and was bleeding everywhere. There was a massive gash in his back, but eventually it stopped bleeding. And Eugene didn't really want to ruin his family vacation, so he decided to not go to the hospital and just wait to get it checked out at home. A week later, when they arrived back at home, Eugene finally decided to go to the hospital. But when doctors scanned Eugene's x-rays, they could not believe their eyes. Doctors found a cancerous tumor, and thankfully they were able to remove it in time. Here's what people from 100 years ago thought the world would look like today. First off, they thought we would have automatic moving sidewalks. Next, they thought we would have roofs over our cities to protect us from the weather. And speaking about weather, they thought we would have weather controlling machines. Next up is video calls, which they actually did get right. Next, they thought we would walk on water with the help of balloons. Next, they thought we would have flying taxis, which I really do hope we get one day. The NFL has hired private investigators to stop this man because he has broken into the Super Bowl 35 times. And I promise you are not gonna believe the Hall of Fame picture of him I show you at the end. The thing about Dion Rich is that he is a great talker. So he has snuck into parties at the Playboy Mansion and met tons of famous people, including NFL players. So before Super Bowl I, he found out where the bus was gonna drop off the Kansas City Chiefs. He simply got there before them, put on a team jacket, and walked into the locker rooms. And he was hooked. After that, he snuck into almost every Super Bowl using disguises. Until the NFL started seeing pictures of him at every Super Bowl, so they started to look out for him. No problem though, because he was friends with some Denver Broncos before Super Bowl XII. He got a ride with them and stayed on the sidelines. The Cowboys ended up winning, but they got this photo of Dionne Rich carrying the Cowboys head coach. This girl was abandoned by her parents and raised by wild dogs. Oksana Malaya was only 3 years old when she was neglected by her alcoholic parents who left her outside one night. With the night being cold, she crawled to the closest thing that could provide her with warmth and shelter, which was the dog kennel. The next morning, her parents didn't even notice she was missing, so she ended up living in the dog kennel, surviving off of the food scraps the dogs left over. Even though she would see humans from a distance and occasionally crawl on all fours into her house like a stray, humans were no longer her species. Slowly, Oksana became one of the pack, and it wasn't until 5 years later when a neighbor notified the police that a little girl was being raised by wild dogs. By the time she was rescued, she lost all ability to speak and was running on all fours like a dog. Now at the age of 34, she lives in a home for the mentally disabled and is said to have the mental capacity of a 6-year-old. This little girl suddenly passed away, but what her mom found in a secret letter will make you cry. 12-year-old Taylor was just like any other girl her age. One day she was doing homework when suddenly she felt a strong pain in her chest. She then collapsed to the floor and her mom called 911. Taylor was then rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The doctors discovered she had severe pneumonia and she slipped into a coma. And a few days later she sadly passed away. Her mother was devastated, but as she went to go clean her room, she found a secret letter that she had written. The letter was actually a message to herself that she was supposed to open in 2023. She talked about her hopes, dreams, and her relationship with God. Her mother was so inspired by this that she actually wrote a book on it. This man discovered he was married to twins when one of them got into a car accident. Charlie Bernard lived in Florida in 1984. While there, he met a girl named Amanda Hopkins who went to the same college. They started dating, and after only 2 years they moved in together and got married. But soon after, Charlie began to notice strange behavior from Amanda, like day-to-day mood swings and forgetfulness. One night while Charlie was home alone, he got a call from the police telling him that Amanda was in a car accident and was at the hospital in critical condition. But just as he was about to head to the hospital, he heard the front door open. He was speechless to see Amanda walk in, but she was confused at his reaction. Charlie then explained to her the phone calls he had just received about her. Hearing what happened to Amanda, she burst into tears and told him the truth. Her name was Joy and she was Amanda's twin sister. When Amanda got married to Charlie, they didn't want to lead different lives, so they decided they would take turns being Amanda. This boy claimed he remembered his past life until his parents discovered he wasn't lying. A Syrian boy named Arius was born with a particular red birthmark across his forehead. As soon as he could speak, he explained to his parents that he had already lived a past life as another man, claiming he was murdered with an axe by his own neighbor. It turns out a man in their village had gone missing years earlier and the neighbor was the prime suspect. So Arius and his parents went to the neighbor's house to find out the truth. When the neighbor opened the door, he turned white as a ghost, claiming he was innocent. But Arius demanded the neighbor to come with them as he knew where his own body was buried. Arius led them miles from the village to a specific spot under a tree and they started digging, but you won't believe what they found underneath. They found a skull that was cracked exactly where Arius's birthmark was. Everyone was shocked and the neighbor was later arrested and sentenced to death. This girl's dad offered $128 million to any guy who can marry her. Gigi Chow is the daughter of a Chinese billionaire, and even though she's never had trouble attracting guys, she's a lesbian and her dad doesn't like that. So in an attempt to make his gay daughter straight, he offered $128 million to any guy that can make Gigi find them attractive. Even though 20,000 males from all around the world showed interest, Gigi rejected them all. She told her father that she'll marry a man when he marries a man, and now she's an advocate for the LGBT community. This man was frozen in ice for 3 days and you won't believe what happened to him. His name is David Blaine and he went inside a block of ice for 3 days, with no food and only one tube supplying him with air and water. At the 61-hour mark, he was beginning to lose consciousness, but he couldn't go to sleep because if he leaned on the ice, he would have gotten severe frostbite. Unfortunately, this led him to have extreme hallucinations. Near the end of the stunt, he called his girlfriend over, but she was immediately pulled away. This made him think that he was dead and that she couldn't see him. After 63 hours, they decided to cut him out, but they said he was so delusional he tried to grab the chainsaw. He finally made it out, but he was so physically and emotionally tired that he couldn't walk or talk. David was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and after 1 month of therapy, he finally made a full recovery. This guy raised his arm and hasn't put it down for 40 years. His name is Amar, and he has kept his arm above his head since 1979. He decided to raise his arm and keep it there to disconnect him from all the luxuries of mortal life. He said he felt extreme pain when he first raised his arm, but now he doesn't feel it at all. The muscles in his arms have atrophied so much he couldn't use his arm even if he wanted to. His arm is stuck in this position and will continue to be for the rest of his life.
3, 2, 1.
You could have the ability to do this. About 8% of people can. This skill is called voluntary nystagmus, where your eyes move side to side so fast it looks like they're vibrating. If you want to find out how to do this, listen carefully. First, you need to hold your finger about a foot in front of you. Now bring your finger closer until it's almost blurry. At that point, shift your focus between your finger and the background behind it really fast. This will cause your eyes to shake. Comment if you tried it. Here are some terrifying things about Disney that you didn't know about. Number 1. Disney's secret underground tunnels. You heard me right. Right beneath the Disney parks is a vast network of tunnels. These tunnels are used by the workers to get around the park easier and faster. But some kids have accidentally found these tunnels and actually gotten lost down there. Number 2. Spreading ashes around the park. It is actually a pretty common occurrence that Disney park visitors will spread the ashes of their loved ones around the Disney parks. But the creepiest part is the most common place people spread the ashes is in the Haunted Mansion ride, which has led the ride to actually become very haunted. So haunted actually that thousands of people every year claim to see this same ghost boy at the end of the ride crying for his mom. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 9. Scientists just discovered 24 super habitable planets with conditions that are better suited for life than Earth. They are all slightly older than Earth, a little larger, slightly warmer, and possibly wetter. They also orbit better stars that have longer lifespans than our very own sun. Also, a 100 million year old meteorite crater was just discovered while drilling for gold in Australia. The crater is over 3 miles in diameter, and it is one of the world's largest meteorite craters ever. And the crater is estimated to be around 100 million years old. Also, the Hubble telescope just spotted a huge star explosion in a distant galaxy. Hubble captured a supernova exploding in a galaxy that is 70 million light years away, which means that this explosion happened 70 million years ago, which I find absolutely insane. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 8. Astronauts that are aboard the International Space Station woke up a couple days ago and found out that there was an air leak in the space station. And the scariest part is that the leak was growing in size and they needed to find the source of it before it was too late. Thankfully, they were able to find the source and they patched it up, but that's terrifying to even think about. Scientists found 100 million year old microbes at the bottom of the ocean and just brought them back to life. These microbes that were alive before dinosaurs even went extinct were discovered 10 years ago, but now in 2020 they came back to life. I don't think 2020 is the year to be bringing anything back to life. Back in 2014, scientists discovered a signal coming from outer space, and just recently it became active again. These signals found in outer space are called fast radio bursts. This signal was dormant since 2014, but of course in 2020 it became active again. And in case you didn't know, Trump is the coronavirus. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 7. Scientists just opened a cave that was sealed away for over 5 million years. The air inside was completely toxic due to harmful gases. But scientists still found 33 new creatures in the cave that have never been found anywhere else on the planet. Scientists also just discovered microorganisms that eat viruses at the bottom of the ocean. They are not like any other microorganisms, and maybe they can help us get rid of the coronavirus. A brain-eating amoeba has just been found in Texas. 8 Texas cities have been told to boil all water before use, because if contaminated water gets in your body in any way, even in your ears or up your nose, you could possibly die. There was also going to be a super rare blue moon on Halloween night this year. Many believe that this could be a sign that something bad is going to happen. And they might be right, because just a month after the blue moon, there is going to be a blood moon. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 6. A frozen dragon was just discovered in Canada. A new species of flying creature that was longer than 30 feet was discovered frozen in Canadian ice. Scientists are calling it the frozen dragon of the north, and it was one of the largest flying animals in our planet's history. A Nazi coin from 2039 was discovered in a construction site in Mexico. On the front of the coin it has a swastika, which I blurred out for obvious reasons, but on the bottom it shows the year 2039, which means that this coin is from the future and was dropped by a time traveler, or this coin could be from a parallel universe. And on the top of the coin it says Nueva Almania, which translates to New Germany. Also, Japan just built a 60-foot robot that weighs over 24 tons. The robot can even walk, kneel, move individual fingers, and even talk. Also, Amazon is selling flying security cameras. If the drone detects movement in any other room in your house, it will fly. Go check it out and record. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 5. On September 14th in New Jersey, this aircraft that looks like an alien UFO was seen hovering over the city. People were stopping in the middle of the highway just to capture videos of it. Some are saying it's just a blimp, but knowing 2020, who knows? Turns out September 14th was even more crazy as 2 asteroids flew right past Earth on that same day. They were about 1/3 of the distance to the moon, which by space standards was pretty close. Also, Batman is delivering hot meals to homeless people in Santiago, Chile every night. The man cooks around 100 food rations a day and he pays for all of it. He then dresses as Batman and delivers the dinners to homeless people throughout the city of Santiago. Also, scientists just uncovered the oldest sperm sample ever found. The sperm was preserved in amber and it dates back to the Cretaceous period, which was about 100 million years ago. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 4. We all remember the clowns from 2016 that were spotted everywhere, right? Well, now in 2020 they are back and even creepier than before. There are tons of reports of them chasing people with axes and other weapons. And a lot of them are also offering children money and candy to come into the woods with them. We all know about the Kraken, that's basically a ginormous squid, right? Well, something just like it has just been discovered. This huge thing was thought to be a small island or a large rock down near Antarctica. But scientists saw it move on Google Maps and confirmed it's a giant squid that's over 300 feet long. But the craziness does not stop there. Japan has just made a real-life transformer. This real-life transformer can easily switch between a working car and a giant humanoid robot. And to make things even cooler, it can even walk, talk, and grab things with its huge hands. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 3. This 16-year-old soccer player in Russia got struck by lightning and miraculously survived. A surveillance camera caught the moment that the soccer player got struck by lightning as he was warming up with his team. Ivan was rushed to the hospital where he was placed in a medically induced coma. And just 3 weeks later he made a full recovery and is back to playing soccer. Also, people are purposely becoming disabled by choice and calling themselves transabled. Body integrity identity disorder is a rare psychological condition that makes healthy individuals feel like they're supposed to be disabled. Some people that suffer from this injure or disable themselves on purpose, like this man right here. This is Alex Mensar and he willingly cut off both of his legs and an arm. Also, doctors just pulled a 4-foot snake out of a woman's throat after it slithered in there as she slept. She woke up feeling very unwell and rushed to the hospital. The doctors then pulled out a 4-foot snake out of her mouth that was still alive. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 2. Scientists just captured videos of sharks living in active volcanoes. The scientists dropped a camera into the main crater of the Kavachi volcano located in the Solomon Islands and found sharks living in there. And apparently the sharks can use their special sensory abilities to detect when the volcanoes are going to erupt. But wait, the craziness is just getting started. Japan's first flying car just successfully flew in a test flight with a passenger on board. The car is named SD03 and it is completely electric and will be available to the public in 2023. These things would get rid of the hassle of airports, traffic jams, and car accidents, and the SD03 would eventually fly itself as well. Also, magician and stuntman David Blaine just successfully flew over the Arizona desert holding on to 50 balloons. He ended up floating to almost 25,000 feet in the sky, which is almost as high as airplanes fly, and he was in the sky for over an hour. Welcome to ridiculous shit going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Just 2 days ago, a man in a real jetpack was flying 3,000 feet over the Los Angeles International Airport. The man was flying only 300 feet away from the planes as they landed. Who does this guy think he is, the real life Iron Man? Anyways, the FBI are investigating and no one has come forward to take credit for the stunt. But wait, we have other things flying around too, as this witch was seen flying around San Diego. The fact that we have witches flying around and no one is talking about this, or freaking out, says a lot about our current situation in the world right now. This 50,000-year-old lake that was formed when a meteorite slammed into Earth just turned pink and no one knows why. In less than a month, the Lonar Lake in India went from this green color to this pink color. Since the lake was formed by a meteor crash and the color changed so quickly, scientists are shocked and have no idea what's going on. 2020 seriously needs to calm down. This garbage man noticed an elderly woman didn't take her trash off for over 2 weeks and he ended up saving her life. Garbage man Jake Bland was doing his job and making rounds in the neighborhood when he noticed one of the residents hadn't put out any trash for more than 2 weeks. He could have just ignored it, but he decided to figure out what was going on, as 2 weeks of no trash was a troubling sign. He had his company give the woman a call, and it turned out that the woman who lived there was 92 years old, and she had no trash because sadly she had no food to eat. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, elderly people are more likely to die to the virus, which makes grocery shopping a huge life risk. She also did not have any friends or family that could get the groceries for her. She had been living off of old food for weeks, so Jake Bland and the garbage company he worked for decided to step in and lend a hand. Jake and his team created a list of essential food items, went out and got the groceries, and hand-delivered them to the elderly woman. And they also paid for all of it. So all thanks to this caring garbage man, the elderly woman now has fresh groceries to eat. Today we're going to talk about a 9-year-old boy that thought a man was living in his walls. And it only gets worse when he sees a pair of eyes in his air vent. One night in May 1981, we ordered Chinese food. I waited until everyone was asleep and crept downstairs to eat leftover sweet and sour pork. It took forever, but I finally stepped into the totally dark den and let down my guard when all of a sudden I heard a fork click on the counter. I froze. The microwave clock light showed the outline of a man sitting at our kitchen counter. But then a few months later, in August, I saw something in the air conditioning vent above my bed. I was in my room reading when I looked up. There is an AC vent right over my bed, and behind the vent was a pair of eyes that were watching me. And they concluded he had been living in our walls and our vents for at least 6 months. This man donated half of his liver to a complete stranger that had only 2 months to live and ended up marrying her, and this true story will shock you. This is Christopher Dempsey, and one day he overheard a coworker he barely knew talking about a cousin that had stage 4 liver disease. She needed a liver transplant, but there was 119,000 people on the transplant list before her, and unless she found a donor, she only had 2 months left to live. Christopher got himself tested to see if he was a match, and when he figured out he was, he agreed to donate half of his liver. The woman whose life he saved was named Heather Kruger, and they did not meet until after the surgery. But when they did meet, they instantly fell in love and started dating after the operation, and 2 years after saving her life, Christopher got married to a woman he never would have met if he didn't agree to give up half of his liver to a complete stranger. This homeless man returned a $4,000 wedding ring back to its owner, and he got a house in return. And this true story will restore your faith in humanity. Billy Ray Harris was begging for money in Kansas City when he got a huge stroke of good luck. A young woman named Sarah Darling meant to drop a few coins into his cup, but her wedding ring slipped off and she didn't notice. His first instinct was to go sell it, but when his nearby jewelry shop told him it was worth $4,000, he felt super guilty and couldn't bring himself to sell it. Instead, he just waited until he saw Sarah Darling again and asked her if she lost her ring. Sarah and her husband wanted to repay him, so they set up a GoFundMe for him. They expected to raise only a few $100s for Harris, but Harris's story went absolutely viral, and he got a lot more than he could have expected. When it was all over, Sarah Darling raised over $185,000 for Billy Ray Harris, and he was able to buy a car and a home and get his life back on track. This 3-year-old boy remembered his past life, and his story and all the proof will blow your mind. Back in the 1980s, a boy named Chanao Chamaluwang was born with a small birthmark at the back of his head and a larger one on his forehead. And when he was 3 years old, he talked about a previous life in which he was named Bawakai, and he was a teacher, and as he rode his bicycle to school, he was shot in the back of the head and died. Chanao asked his grandmother to take him to his family from his previous life, and when she did, he led her to a house that a man named Bawakai used to live in with his family. Chanao identified and knew the names of Baoakai's parents, wife, and 2 daughters who were still living there. And the parents of Baoakai confirmed that their son had died from a gunshot wound as he was riding his bicycle to work 5 years before Chanao was born. And the craziest part is that the entrance of the bullet was on the back of his head and the exit wound was on his forehead. And all that matched Chanao's birthmarks perfectly. A group of dolphins saved a suicidal girl from taking her own life, and the way they did it was so wholesome. A team of field biologists were studying a group of dolphins when all of a sudden one of them broke away from a feeding circle and rushed into deeper waters. The other dolphins soon followed, eventually forming a circle around a dark object. Intrigued by the weird behavior of the animals, the team followed the dolphins to what they discovered was a drowning girl. They managed to pull the girl out of the water and make it to the shore in time. Thankfully, the girl ended up making a full recovery. Although she was found with a suicide note on her, if the dolphins hadn't noticed her when they did, she wouldn't have made it out alive. This 10-year-old girl saved over 100 people from being killed by a tsunami because of something she learned in school, and her story will surprise you. In 2004, an earthquake with a 9.3 magnitude caused one of the most deadly tsunamis to ever hit the Asian coast. Tilly Smith was a middle schooler that was vacationing in Thailand with her family just moments before the chaos of Mother Nature hit. But luckily, she had been paying attention in class to a lecture just a couple weeks before about tsunamis. She was able to recognize the early signs of a tsunami from her geography class and was able to convince her family and 100 other tourists to retreat to safety. Her quick thinking saved over 100 people from being added to the 2 million souls that were lost due to the tsunami. This 15-year-old boy stopped a suicide bomber from killing an entire school of children, and the way he did it is so heroic. Back in 2015, Aitazaz Hassan was walking to his school in Pakistan like any other day, when the fearless 9th grader noticed a man that seemed out of place. The man was a suicide bomber with a vest full of live explosives. The suspicious 15-year-old took no chances and tackled the man in front of his school's gates. He bravely gave the ultimate sacrifice as the bomber detonated his jacket during the brawl. The teen single-handedly saved the lives of an entire school of children by being a selfless man of action. And he might also receive the Army's highest honor award that is given to those who have sacrificed their lives for their country. Scientists have just made a 3,000-year-old mummy speak. And just wait until you hear what it sounds like.
Scientists were able to mimic Nessie Amun's voice by recreating his mouth and vocal cords with a 3D printer. It allowed them to produce a single sound.